بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله نحمده ونصلي على رسوله الكريم أما بعد. Inshallah, today we'll be starting our new series of lectures on the topic of Usul-ul-Fiqh, understanding of Usul-ul-Fiqh. And for this topic, in general, we will be following a book which is Understanding Usul-ul-Fiqh by Abu Tariq al-Hilal and Abu Ismail Bayrawi. Besides that, we will be also consulting other books like Usul-ul-Shashi by Nizamuddin Abi Ali Ash-Shaafi'ee and Taysir al-Usul ila-Usul. This is by Ata bin Khalil Abu Rashta, and also Shakhsiyya al-Islamiyya Juz al-Thalith by Taqiyuddin Nabhani. So, and down the road I'll be consulting, inshallah, some other books as well for the Usul-ul-Fiqh studies, inshallah. And the way we will go is we will cover a section from the book, inshallah, in every session. And if there is any questions and comments related to the topic discussed, we will have the Q&A at the end. But there are some of the topics I will be just touching during the introduction, for example, or down the road, but they will be explained further in later sessions, inshallah. So today, inshallah, we'll start with the introduction. Allah Azza wa Jal says in Kitab al-Kareem, بعد أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم اليوم أكملت لكم دينكم وأتممت عليكم نعمتي ورضيت لكم الإسلام دينا. Sadaqallahu al-Azim. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in Surah Al-Ma'idah here that today I have perfected your deen and completed my favor upon you and have chosen for you Islam as your deen. When this ayah, Ayatul Karima, was revealed to Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, and he was reciting this ayah, one of the incidents that happened was Umar al-Khattab radiyallahu anhu. He started crying when he listened to this ayah, and Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam asked him what makes him cry. And his response was, what made me cry is that our religion is being perfected for us. Now it is perfect. Nothing is perfect, but it is bound to deteriorate. Meaning that since the deen was perfected, now anybody tries to add to the deen that was revealed to Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, that will cause a deterioration, that will cause an imperfection. Similarly, if anything has been taken away from the deen, that will cause an imperfection and the deterioration in the deen. And Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, when he heard this response from Umar ibn Khattab radiallahu anhu, Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam says, Sadaqt, meaning that you have said the truth. That what he understood about the ayah, that this deen of Islam, Allah Azza wa Jal, he completed, akmal, to mean now it has been perfected, and when the perfection is reached, nothing can make it better. Anything that is added or subtracted will make it deteriorate or make it worse. So that was the reason that Umar ibn Khattab was crying, because he understood that there will be no more wahi on Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam after the deen has been completed. Now, it is a favor from Allah Azza wa Jal that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has chosen us as the part of the ummah of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. We should be thankful to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for this favor, because in the past that prophets were sent to guide the people with the guidance, and one prophet used to die, another prophet would take over, and he would rule over the people with the deen of Allah Azza wa Jal. Now this job of carrying the Islam, the message of Islam, has been on the shoulder of the Muslim ummah, because Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam was the last messenger of Allah. There will be no more messengers after Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and now this job is on the ummah. So now this job of carrying the message is used to be the job of the Anbiya, the prophets, and now has been carried on to us. About this, the deen of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam mentioned that in Islam bada al-ghariba وبدا غريبا وسيعود غريبا فطوبى للغرباء, that Islam was strange in its beginning and will return strange once more. Therefore, tuba, or the glad tiding, is for the strangers, the one who will bring the Islam back again in the lives. Rasulullah Umar ibn Khattab radiallahu anh once was approached by a Yehudi, a Jew, and he came to Umar and he said, if this ayah, one of the ayat that Muslims recite, it was revealed to us, we would have taken that day as a day of celebration. And Umar al-Khattab radiallahu anh asked him which ayah was he referring to, and the Jew replied, Al-Yawma akmaltu lakum dinakum wa atmamtu alaykum ni'mati. This ayah, that today the deen have been perfected and we have completed the favors over you. And Umar al-Khattab replied by Allah, I know when and where the verse was revealed to Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and it was the evening on the day of the Arafah, on the Friday. Which was referring to that the Muslims already actually celebrate that day, and inshallah we will be celebrating it next Friday, which is going to the Eid. So Muslims already are aware of it, and the Yehudi was saying that because this is a sign now that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has fulfilled the favors. Now this is a blessing from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that He has given to the Muslim Ummah. Now, when we talk about the subject that we want to cover about the Usul-ul-Fiqh, we should understand first that the Deen of Islam is a comprehensive way of life, meaning it deals with all affairs of our life that is related to the Aqidah, for example, or the Aqaid, the things which are linked to our belief system, and also from the very same Aqidah of La ilaha illallah, Muhammad Rasulullah, the whole system of life emanates from, which means that gives us the Ahkam Sharia of how to perform our actions. So, but Islam is not just set of do's and don'ts. We should be careful about that. It's unlike other like a constitutional or a legal document. Rather, Islam provides the solutions for all the problems that man can come up with or have come across, whether it was in the time of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam or the past 1400 years after Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, today and until the day of judgment. Islam provides us the solutions, and for us to know the solutions for our problems, we have to go back to the Qur'an and Sunnah of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam to understand what is the solution for any kind of a day-to-day problem that we come across, whether those problems or those issues that we are coming across are individualistic nature or they are societal nature. In either way, we consult the Quran and Sunnah to find out what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants from us, and we act accordingly. Now, so Islam provided a definite and clear vision to Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam on how to live up to the way of life that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave it to us. And not only that it gave us the actions that we are supposed to undertake, but also how to undertake those actions also. So the rulings are given and as well as the implementation, the methodology or the tariqah of an action, how to do it, is also given by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Now, the Aqidah of Islam, we have to understand that it surpasses the Aqidah of any other kind of ism, whether it is capitalism, democracy, or whatsoever. And because the Aqidah of Islam that makes us subservient to the creator of the heavens and the earth, and it is not dependent on the desires of the other. Rather, it is from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So this is why it is a unique Aqidah to understand this. And the laws of Islam are also which are coming from the very same Aqidah, they are different in that nature because the purpose of following that the system of life or the actions according to the commands of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is to gain the pleasure of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, unlike the other ways of life where we find that actions are linked to the materialistic or just the self-benefit kind of benefit that people are looking for. That doesn't mean that Islam does not allow us to gain the benefits in the dunya. Yes, it does, but they are all linked back to the pleasure of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Now, so now when we are trying to learn about the fiqh, Usul-ul-Fiqh, first we have to know what is fiqh. When we talk about from the linguistic perspective, then linguistically it means understanding or fahm. Like Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in Surah Hud says, قالوا يا شعيب ما نفقه كثيرا مما تقول. Here, the people to whom Shu'aib alayhi salatu wasalam was sent to, they said to Shu'aib alayhi salam, قالوا يا شعيب ما نفقه كثيرا مما تقول, that we do not understand much of what you say, or anything what you say we don't understand. See, here nafqahu means understanding. So this is the linguistic meaning of the word fiqh, which is used in the Qur'an as well. When it comes to from the perspective of a juristic term, fiqh has a two meaning. One is the usuli scholars that define the fiqh, and those scholars, including Amidi, Zarkhashi, Baydawi, and Shawkani, they have defined the fiqh as the knowledge of the practical shari'i matters that are derived from the elaborated evidence, adilla al-tafsiliyah. So that's the definition of from the juristic term, from the istilah or shari perspective, when I look at it. Now, as an example of as an example of a faqih would know the ruling for the issue of abortion. In addition, he would know how and from where this ruling was extracted from. So this is what it means. But so a faqih is the one who has the understanding of the deen, and he can find the rulings from the Quran and the Sunnah and the sources of Islam to find out what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants in a specific rule. Now, issue. Now that issue can be related to any of our actions, meaning that action could be something linked to the relationship that the human beings have with the Creator, meaning Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and that comes under the category of how we worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So ibadat are those actions which are linked to purely the worship kind of actions. And I want to make sure that we understand that we know in Islam, every action is considered as an act of worship. But when fuqaha, they discuss or they separate out the actions into these categories, when they say ibadat, and they are saying this is the relationship between the man and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And then they say mu'amalat. Mu'amalat are the actions or transactions that human beings that undertake with other human beings. While the third category, which is the actions that he does for himself, like malbusat, the way he dresses, or matumat, what he eats, and the akhlaq, the morals and ethics that he carries. So all these three categories, even though they have been categorized like that relationship with yourself, with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and the others, they all come under worshipping Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, because for us, all these things are regulated by the commands of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Now, so the first definition was, as I mentioned, was the knowledge of the practical shari'i matters that are derived from the elaborated evidences, which is called al-adilla al-tafsiliyah. Now, the second definition is actually that the fiqh is a synonymous word for the sharia, which is the Islamic laws. And knowing the sharia rules, so this is the second definition. Now, knowing the sharia rule with which a Muslim is obliged with in life is an individual duty upon every Muslim. Meaning, any action that we are obliged to do by Allah Azza wa Jal as a Muslim, it is an obligation on us to know what is the hukum shari regarding that, because we are mukallaf, we are the one who are responsible or accountable by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the legislator, Ash-Shaafi'ee. So we have to know that since we are accountable for all the actions, then we should know how to perform the action. What does Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants from us? Because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in the Qur'an, فَمَنْ يَعْمَلْ مِثْقَالَ ذَرَّةٍ خَيْرٍ يَرَهُ وَمَنْ يَعْمَلْ مِثْقَالَ ذَرَّةٍ شَرًّا يَرَهُ. And whosoever does an atom way of good will see it. Similarly, and whosoever does an atom's weight of evil will see it. Meaning, if we are accountable for any action we do, whether it's good or bad, whether it's small or big, or minor or major, we are accountable. We will be asked about that. Similarly, Allah Azza wa Jal has mentioned in many other places about the same subject. Allah Subhanahu wa Taala says that kullu nafsin tujadilu an nafsiha. Allah Subhanahu wa Taala is saying every soul will be fully recompensed for what he did, and they will not be wrong. And another place Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, يَوْمَ تَجِدُ كُلُّ نَفْسٍ مَا عَمِلَتْ مِنْ خَيْرٍ مُحْضَرًا وَمَا عَمِلَتْ مِنْ سُوءٍ تَوَدُّ لَوْ أَنَّ بَيْنَهَا وَبَيْنَهُ أَمَدًا بَعِيدًا وَيُحْذِرُكُمُ اللَّهُ نَفْسَهُ وَاللَّهُ رَءُوفٌ بِالْعِبَادِ. The day every soul will find what it has done of good present before it and what it has done on evil. It will wish that between itself and that evil was a great distance. Allah warns you of himself, and Allah is kind to his servants. So here the purpose of reminding from these ayat is so we understand that when we are approaching to understand the principles of a fiqh, so we should know why are we approaching that, because we want to know that how to understand what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants. Even if we are the one who are able to extract the rulings, because if we have the understanding that the tools that is expected from us to use them to understand the rulings from the Qur'an and Sunnah, then we do it by ourselves. If we don't have the tools, and if the others are the one or the one who can have the knowledge to extract the ruling for us, at least we should have an understanding of where they are getting this from, and we can learn at least that how to weigh an opinion that was presented to us. Now, as far as that goes about the accountability, and there's a taklif upon us, it is a decisive text from, and Muslims are accountable for the actions they undertake. Now, the knowledge that we must have is the knowledge that is related to the actions that we undertake. Okay, so for that knowledge is considered as fardul ain. Fardul ain means that this is the knowledge that is obligatory on every one of us to have. While the other kinds of knowledge, whether it is related to sciences or math and all those things, that's also a fard, but this is considered as fardul kifaya, and that can be if enough people can take care of it, that's sufficient for the ummah. And even from the Sharia perspective, the knowledge of the rest of the whole Sharia, that we are not involved in those actions. That knowledge to gain is not a fardul ain. The fardul ain part is only the one which is related to our lives, but the rest of the Sharia knowledge to be gained is a collective obligation, fardul kifaya again. And if there are enough people who have this knowledge, that will be that will lift the obligation from the whole ummah. Now, we have probably heard this hadith many times. Just a reminder, that's what it means by that. What the fardul kifaya, the fardul ain, the fard which is and on every individual is to gain the knowledge. Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, "Talabul ilm faridah ala kulli Muslim," and another place ala kulli Muslim wa Muslimah, that seeking the knowledge is obligatory upon every Muslim. This hadith is reported by Ibn Majah, and that's what it means by that. So for every Muslim, we have to understand that since we are accountable for every action, for all the actions that we undertake, it means that we have to have the knowledge of all the actions that we are taking. Now, there are many ahadith and ayat that talks about the importance of the understanding the deen or the fiqh of the deen. There's a hadith reported by Muawiyah bin Abu Sufyan that says, "Man yuridullahu bihi khayran yufaqqih fi ad-din." Rasulullah said this, that when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wishes good for someone, He bestows upon him the understanding of the deen. This is one of the best thing that can happen to a believer, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bestows the understanding of the deen. And this hadith is a muttafaq alayh hadith, meaning reported by both Imam Bukhari and Imam Muslim. So whenever we hear this term from the hadith perspective, muttafaqun alayh, it means that a hadith have been reported both by Sahih Muslim and Sahih Bukhari, meaning both Sahihain, the two most authentic books of the hadith in Islam. And another place, Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam mentioned about the time of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam and the future times, how the deen, the knowledge of the deen will decrease over the time. Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam says, "Innakum fi zaman kathirun fuqaha'u wa qalilun khutaba'u." That hadith says that you are in the time that there are many who understand the deen, but there are few who just speak, the orators. قليل سؤاله, that few people who ask questions, كثير معطوه, and there are a lot who can answer him. العمل فيه قائد للهوى, and the action is the one that guides the desires, actually, that makes sure that the desires are controlled. And the amal is, of course, from Islam. وَسَيَأْتِي مِنْ بَعْدِكُمْ زَمَانٍ, and the time will come after you. قَلِيلٌ فُقَهَاؤُ كَثِيرٌ خُطَبَاؤُهُ, and there will be few who will have the understanding of the deen, but there will be many who will be speaking about the deen. See, there's a difference between just the orator who's talking about the deen and the one who really understands the deen. And that says كَثِيرٌ سُؤَالُهُ, and there will be many who will be asking. قَلِيلٌ مَعْطُوهُ, but there will be very few who will be able to answer. الهوى فيه قائد للعمل, and the desires will be the one who will be guiding factor, or the one who will be leading the action. اعلموا أن حسن الهدي في آخر الزمان خير من بعد العمل, and understand it, know it, that giving the guidance and having the knowledge in those later days would be better than many of the actions. So it is better to guide, or to know the guidance and guide the people than just keep doing the actions. So the hadith is not discouraging about doing the right action. See, the thing is, sometimes we get confused about that a person is doing a lot of actions, but we tend to not realize whether the action is correct or not, because the action has to be guided by Islam as well. Like, for example, a person can be, you will find him, he fasts, mashallah, every Monday and Thursday, to a point that even if it's that day of the Eid, he's fasting Monday and Thursday. So if he is fasting on the Eid, because Eid fell on Monday or Thursday, that is a lack of ilm from his side, that he did not understand that this is the day that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala does not want us to fast. Now, so this is why it's important to have the knowledge as well. Besides the action, knowledge and action, they both go hand in hand. So the knowledge is the one that should be guiding the action, not other way around, that action is the one who's trying to get the knowledge so that can satisfy whatever you want to do. Like, unfortunately, many a times we find that we fall to this trap, that we want to do an action and we look for a sheikh who can tell me my action is correct. That's not the way to look for the guidance and to follow the guidance. Rather, we have to, this is just a basic definition of being a Muslim, the one who submit to the will of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, meaning he wants to know what is the will of Allah for my action, and then guide his action accordingly, not other way around. And Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, on the very same topic of the importance of the one who understands. He says, so some said that it's reported by Imam Ahmad, the death of 1,000 worshippers who pray at night and worship in the day is less serious than the death of one al-Basir, intelligent knower, the one who have the knowledge of the halal and the haram of Allah Azza wa Jal. So that shows that how much of a weight that knowing the deen of Allah Azza wa Jal, Allah Subhanahu wa Taala has in His sight. So we should strive to learn the deen properly, and of course that knowledge has to produce an action as well. Otherwise, it's just a piece of information that just exists in our head, and if it's not driving us to act. Now, when it comes to Usul-ul-Fiqh, so we talk about the fiqh. Fiqh is the understanding, as we talked about from the perspective of from the linguistic definition, and when it comes to from the usuli perspective, it means the knowledge of the practical shari matters that are derived from their elaborated evidences. And the other definition was it is a synonym for Sharia or the Islamic laws. Now, so that's the fiqh. Now we'll talk about what is Usul-ul-Fiqh. Usul-ul-Fiqh is the collection of principles pertaining to the methodology for the extraction of a fiqh. Okay, so these are the principles. Usul actually in Arabic means principles, and it is pertaining to the methodology that how do you go and extract the Sharia, meaning extract the Sharia rules from the sources of Islam. Now, Ibn al-Hajib, one of the Maliki scholars, he defined it as a principle by which the mujtahid derives the legal rules of conduct from the specific evidences. And the similar kind of definitions you can find in the books of Ahnaf or Shafi'i or and on and on. And by the way, I want to clarify one more thing here, that when we are studying the Usul-ul-Fiqh here, we are not trying to just take one of the madhab here only, meaning to study from the Hanafi perspective or Shafi'i perspective. Rather, we are discussing from the perspective of, we're trying to understand what is the Usul-ul-Fiqh, and so we can, whichever usul we adopt later in our lives, we can live accordingly, that's fine. But the purpose of discussion or the series of talks that we are going to have here is just a general discussion on Usul-ul-Fiqh. Now, the concept of Usul-ul-Fiqh, if you think about it, it is very much comparable to the scientific experiments you do, because you are restricted yourself with some sort of methodologies. So Usul-ul-Fiqh actually guides a person to stay within those principles when he or she is extracting the rules of the Sharia. Okay, so this kind of a methodology provides a way for a person to derive Islamic rules from the legislative sources in Islam. Now, when we talk about the usul, the collection of these principles related to usul al-fiqh are many actually. But we'll talk about a few today here, inshallah. Those few included, for example, the legislative sources. And today we are just touching the base on some of these principles. Inshallah, down the road, we will be going into a little bit more detail for that each specific one. So like for example, since today is just an introduction. So for example, the legislative sources. Now, those legislative sources, adopting specific sources to drive the laws is a major subject of Usul-ul-Fiqh. Now, the Qur'an, Sunnah, Ijma, Sahaba, consensus of the companions, and the Qiyas are the four sources in Islam, which are accepted by almost all the scholars. However, we'll find that there are differences. There are additional sources of these sources, such as Maslaha al-Mursala, public interest, or Ijma al-Ummah, which is the consensus of the Ummah. Some of them go by Ijma al-Ulama or Ijma al-Madina, and on and on. But besides of the first four that I talked about, the Quran, Sunnah, Ijma, Sahaba, and Qiyas, which are mostly being accepted by most of the scholars, the other ones which I mentioned, they are not the ones which are accepted by all. And this is hence causes differences of opinions among the fuqaha when they look at the Quran and the Sunnah, which are the basic sources, and but then when they apply the other sources of Islam, that can cause differences of opinions among the fuqaha. And inshallah, when we will understand the Usul-ul-Fiqh also, we will appreciate the differences of opinions that we see among the scholars, instead of just getting edgy whenever we see a difference of opinion, that just because the opinion is not according to what I follow, and I just start thinking of that person is completely wrong, we will start understanding that why and where those differences of opinion come from in Islam. And we will be, instead of going crazy about that, rather we will be more productive in our discussions with each other, even when we are trying to convince each other from, because you think of your opinion is the right opinion, and that's the way you look at the differences of opinion or the ikhtilaf, right? So inshallah, this is another byproduct of these lectures that we will have, inshallah. And we'll also understand how to deal with those differences of opinions. It's not the issue itself is not the difference of opinion in Islam, actually. As a matter of fact, the more important thing is how you deal with the difference of opinion. So so this is about, for example, the legislative sources. Other thing is about the Arabic language. Now, Arabic language is the source of understanding any content, any text from of Islam. So this plays a major role as one of the most important thing, because to understand the Quran and the Hadith, because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala chose Arabic language as a language in which He revealed the message of Islam. And for us to extract ruling, we have to understand the Arabic language. So whosoever wants to go in the field, he has to learn the language. And when we talk about language, the language means the rules of the grammar in the Arabic language that define the meaning of an ayah or the hadith. So therefore, the understanding the rules of grammar and the application is one of the use of the Arabic language in Usul-ul-Fiqh. So this is one of the important things. And inshallah, we'll talk about some of the examples and stuff in the later lectures when we go in each subject in detail, inshallah. Now, besides that, interpreting the Quran and the Hadith. When we when the faqih interprets the Quran and the Hadith, it is, and to understand it correctly, we have to know a few of the things in there as well. No ruling can be deduced from it if we don't we don't know the linguistic structure of the Quran and the Hadith and the Sunnah, for example. Because the linguistic structure of the Quran and the Sunnah varies from one style to another. For example, these linguistic styles could be dhanni. Dhanni means they are speculative, there's speculation in the text, or it could be qat'i, it's definite. So dhanni can be speculative or indefinite, while qat'i, that it has a definite meaning. Similarly, some of the text can be am. Am means is general the text, and some of the text, on the other hand, could be khas. Khas means it is a specific case, an exception to the general case. So something can be am, but there could be a khas case within that am. Or it could be haqiqi, it's a literal text, or majazi, it could be a metaphorical text. So to the rules to distinguish and differentiate between these styles are an important subject of Usul-ul-Fiqh, and we'll go in detail more later on, inshallah. Similarly, another essential aspect involved in interpreting the Quran and the Sunnah are related to nasikh wal mansukh. Al-nasikh wal mansukh, meaning the abrogator and the abrogated. Which ayah or which hadith abrogates the other ayah or the hadith, and for that you have to have the knowledge of it, which one is the abrogator and which one is the abrogated. Because if you don't have that knowledge, we may end up going other way around. and we will look at the hukum from the perspective of the one which has been abrogated. We think of it, oh, this is the law that we have to follow, and the one which is supposed to be taken, we may put it on the side, which will be wrong understanding. Now, but unfortunately, we find that some of the Muslims, they claim today that there is no need of Usul-ul-Fiqh, meaning that we can just directly go to the text of the Qur'an and text of the Hadith, and we can drive the laws. See, this is a very, this claim actually really shows the ignorance in understanding of Islam, because it is impossible to drive laws without being equipped with necessary tools that those tools tell us how to extract the ruling, and otherwise we'll end up seeing things, they may start look contradictory to us. For example, just take an example of the haqiqi and majazi, for example. One of the hadith of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, when Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam sent some Sahaba to Banu Qurayda, and he told them that whosoever believe in Allah and the Day of Judgment should not pray Salatul Asr until he reaches Banu Qurayda. Now, the group of Sahaba who were going on the expedition, while they were on their way, the time of Asr was about to expire, and they decided to pray. Other Sahaba reminded them, Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam told them that do not pray Salatul Asr until you reach Banu Qurayda. Now, among the Sahaba, there was ikhtilaf now. There's a difference of opinion about the understanding of the hadith. Some Sahaba, they said, no, we have to follow the command, what Rasulullah said. Now, they prayed Salatul Asr there, while the others, they understood it as that Rasulullah said, don't pray until you reach there. So they took the literal meaning, and they went to Banu Qurayda, and the time of Salatul Asr was expired, and they prayed there. The difference was this: the one who took it literally, meaning they took it as Rasulullah meant it this way, that do not pray Asr until you reach Banu Qurayda. They did not. They let the time for the Asr expire, and when they reached there, and they prayed over there. While the other took it in a metaphorical manner, meaning of it, they understood it as the Rasulullah said that hurry up and get to Banu Qurayda before Salatul Asr time expires, so you will pray your Salatul Asr over there in that time. So see, this is how the differences can happen. Now, which one is correct, which one to be taken? Now, this has to be understood by the one who understands what is the difference between literal and what is the difference between metaphoric meaning, and which one is intended over there. And of course, even then, Rasulullah did not say one was right and one was wrong here, because ikhtilaf was allowed in that scenario. Okay, now the one who talks like this, that you can just dig into the right away Qur'an Sunnah and you will be able to extract the ruling, this is ignorance. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala actually says in the Qur'an, وَلَا تَقْفُ مَا لَيْسَ مَلَكَ بِهِ عِلْمٍ إِنَّ السَّمْعَ وَالْبَصَرَ وَالْفُؤَادَ كُلُّ أُولَٰئِكَ كَانَ عَنْهُ مَسْئُولًا. That pursue not that about which you have no knowledge. For surely the sama' wal-basar wal-fuad, your hearing, your sight, your heart, all of these will be held accountable on the Day of Judgment. So we should not be talking about a subject if we do not have the knowledge of it. So now going back to the subject as an example, without being aware of the rules of Arabic grammar, for example, for interpreting the Qur'an and the Sunnah, one would not be able to differentiate whether the command in the ayah or the hadith for a certain action is haram or makruh. Because look, every command or the talab from Allah Azza wa Jal, if it is for prohibition, does not necessarily entail that thing is haram directly. It could carry the meaning of the makruh, undesirable. Similarly, every command to do an action does not entail that it is a fard or wajib, it's an obligation. Rather, it could be an obligation. It could be a sunnah or a recommended action, or it could be a mubah or permissible action. Whichever it is, we have to go back and follow the principle and the usul to understand that, and from there we can tell whether an action is comes under the obligatory action or recommended action. Okay. Now, since the rulings are derived based on Usul-ul-Fiqh, a variation in Usul-ul-Fiqh may result in different rulings, as we have discussed already. And this is one of the reasons that there might exist more than one ruling on some issues. So this is something we should understand. Now, the end product of Usul-ul-Fiqh in general is the Sharia, meaning we get the fiqh. Using the usul, using the principle, we find we get the understanding of the deen, and we understand what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants from us. So inshallah, I don't want to extend it way too much, because I know there's some of the terminologies I'm using here. Don't get disheartened by some of the terminologies I'm using. Down the road, I will be defining it furthermore for the clarification as well. I'll try to limit it up to here, and next week inshallah we will talk about what is the Sharia, what is Hukum Shari, and what are the different types of Hukum Shari in Islam. So I'll stop the lecture here today, and inshallah if there's any questions or comments, I'll try to answer them. Seems like there's no question, huh?
It looks like it. They could either unmute themselves or
okay,
you can type it in the chat.
now. Oh, you can hear me now. Yes, you can.
Okay, who's talking here?
Hassan.
Hassan, you have a question?
So, about the question? Okay, you can't even see me. Okay.
I cannot see you, I can hear you.
Okay. Okay, so about the story. Okay, about the story, well, I don't know. Okay, so
Hassan, if you remember the question, then come back, okay?
Yeah.
So you can mute yourself now.
I can. Oh wait, but I can turn my camera.
Okay, there is a question in the chat. I just pasted.
Yes. Okay. So the question is, some people say we need a different usul for living in the U.S. This is by Brother Muhammad Siddiqui, and so these are two different questions, or it's the same question? How do we take this same question? Okay. How do we take this understanding? Isn't the usul by the four major madhabs sufficient? Okay. I think actually these are two different questions to be addressed. One, when it comes to the usul, or two Shia madhabs also mentioned there by whether Ja'fari or Imam Ja'far, Imam Baqir, or Isna Ashari. Anyways, so it's more of a look. We don't need usul. Usul are not specific to a time and a place. This is a misunderstanding that have been circulating around among the Muslims, unfortunately, nowadays, that as if we need a new fiqh, a new understanding of the deen, or new usul for living in the US or living in the West. Rather, and it is because of some of the things in which Islam allows us to take, for example, to follow the traditions or the customs, and this is considered normally used as the base for that. The problem here is this: when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala allows us to follow some customs and traditions, meaning the urf, that urf means their or customs and traditions of the area means that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala had made those things as the mubah. Mubah means these things are permissible by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And the choice is given to us that we can choose between one action to the other, which are mubah, right? Now, now if so it's not other way around, meaning that the custom and traditions or the urf will drive what we are supposed to be doing. It's actually more of a Sharia has allowed us to follow the traditions over there within the parameter that Islam has defined, not other way around. That's one aspect of it. If we understand that, then we understand this also. It's not the issue of the place we are at that this will guide us what is the rulings, or we are going to have a different fundamentals or the principles of deen to look at, and the fiqh will come from there. So that's an incorrect statement. Well, one aspect. Second, to say that it is enough for us to have 4 madhab or 6 madhab, whichever number we are talking about. Look, when it comes to the madhab, obviously we know that madhab are more of they came after Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, right? So they came after Rasulullah sallallahu, and it is for our ease and for our understanding of the deen, or to have a clear understanding of the deen, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that those fuqaha, they put together some principles for us to follow. Now, in reality, these are not the 4 only madhab that existed even in the past. These are the 4 they became more famous, for example, or they are more dominant among the people. There were other scholars in the past as well who had their own madhab or their own usul that they were following. Now they have become more dominant, more available for the people. That's why we only talk about these 4. It's not a must for a person to follow just, for example, one madhab also. Yes, there are some scholars, they talk from the perspective of that you have to follow specific madhab only. While we can see that within the same madhab, you can see differences can exist. Following the same principles, you can end up with a different ruling sometime within the same school of thought. I don't want to go into too much of this detail like this, because I think we may be going ahead of time. But to give a short answer, that yes, we do not need a different usul or different fiqh for the US or for any place. Rather, we can either use the existing usul, or even if there is a different understanding we are coming up today, it has to come from within the Quran and Sunnah paradigm. Okay. And inshallah, when we go more, discuss more about these specific madhab, we'll go in more detail. Okay. Can logic be a principle used in usul? So I'm not sure what it means by that. Logic is more of it's a way of thinking, if I want to say it, and you have to be clear on the question, because different people carry different meaning. Now, is a logic a source of ruling? No, logic is not the source of ruling, meaning logic is not the one that's going to dictate what is the hukum of Allah Azza wa Jal about something. It's not the mind that's going to tell us what should be the ruling from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Mind is used for understanding the reality of an issue or a problem that we are facing, and mind is used to understand the sources of Islam, of our deen, the Quran, Sunnah, Ijma, Sahaba, and Qiyas. From there, we understand what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants from us for a specific reality, and we apply on that. So mind is used for these purposes, but not the mind itself does not become the source of the hukum shari itself, meaning the deciding factor of what is right and what is wrong. So logic, is not a source. If that's what it means by logic. If you're talking about the logic as mantaq, which is you have premises and you conclude out of it. It's in Islam, it's more of a reasoning we use. We understand what the reality is out there, and then we find what is the ruling about that reality, instead of logic, because in logic you can have premises which are actually it's mafruda, or it's a supposition or assumption. So hukum shari is not deduced through the assumptions, rather it is deduced for a reality from the reality of the Quran and Sunnah. Okay. Any other question or comment?
Just one thing, Assalamu alaikum.
Alaikum salam.
Just to follow up on this question about the logic, there is a statement of Imam Ali Karamallah Wajh that we can remember,
Yes.
who mentioned that if we were to follow logic, then we would do masa on below, on under the feet, basically on the sock, rather than on top of on the top side, basically. So this, and the logic would have been that it's more unclean because the bottom touches the ground in a sense, and that's not the hukum. The hukum is we do masa from on the top. So that, which clearly he's trying to explain to us that in the issues of hukum shari, logic is not to be used. Is the hukum of the shara that has to be understood, basically. The dalil has to be understood.
Let me make it a little bit clear here. What the brother mentioning the example is actually the saying of Ali is more talking about the aql. That aql is not, the mind is not the criterion of right and wrong. From the mind perspective, the mind dictates, our aql dictates that the dirt is under the sock, so we should be wiping under the sock when we are doing the masah khuffain. While in the case of masah, what Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam showed us was he wiped the top of the khuf, or the socks that he was wearing. So hence we follow that. We don't follow what the mind is dictating that it seems better. Rather, what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given to us through Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, we follow that. So it's actually, that one is specific to aql. So I'm assuming that the brother, when he's talking about logic, he's thinking of the aql, and I'm going to keep it that way, inshallah, unless it means something else. Okay, you mentioned that there are cases when ikhtilaf is allowed and cases when it is not allowed. What are those cases? Okay, the question is, see, the ikhtilaf is like when we were talking about some of the sources of Islam, for example. Now, ikhtilaf can be from that, or linguistic meanings of an ayah or the hadith that can carry more than one meaning. Like the example of the hadith of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, when I mentioned about the example of Sahaba were sent to Banu Qurayda and they were told not to pray Salatul Asr until they reach Banu Qurayda. Now, in that example, linguistically, it carries both the meanings. The haqiqi meaning was, which is literal meaning, that don't pray unless you reach Banu Qurayda. Simple as that. That's the literal meaning of it. While the majazi meaning underneath was, or metaphoric meaning was, that you hurry up and get to Banu Qurayda and pray there. So now, both of the group of Sahaba were following the command of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. They're still both following the command. The command was not to pray Salatul Asr until you reach Banu Qurayda, and one was following the majazi meaning, one was following haqiqi meaning, or literalist, and literal meaning and metaphoric meaning. So in that case, it is an acceptable ikhtilaf. Unfortunately today, it becomes like this, that yes, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says a ruling about something. For example, let's say riba. Riba is haram. You're taking or giving usury is haram. Then somebody comes up and makes up his own definition of the riba from his mind, okay, and he starts applying that, no, it is allowed for us, for example, it's a hardship So it is allowed for us to give or take riba. First house is okay, first business is okay, or first degree that you're trying to get from the schooling is okay to take the loans on riba and all. It's a very clear haram in Islam. It's not allowed. Now, so, and if a person comes and say, no, I just have an ikhtilaf from you, this ikhtilaf is not considered as ikhtilaf. Okay, this is just, yes, you are just differing from me, but the basis of your difference is not Quran and Sunnah. So the only difference that can be acceptable is that is coming from the sources of Islam, and you are staying within those rulings of Islam, not just you making it up something and say, I differ from you. So that difference is not considered as acceptable difference of opinion. Now, there's a way of accepting to deal with that. That's the main thing. That first of all, if it is from the Quran and the Sunnah, and you have come to the conclusion that the right opinion is, let's say, opinion A, then you are bound to follow opinion A, unless Islam is the one that tells you that, for example, if the Amir over you, he adopts an opinion, then you have to follow that opinion, or you find a better dalil that tells you the opinion you were following was incorrect. So now you have to drop this opinion, you have to follow the right one. Otherwise, you look at your opinion as you're right, and with this understanding that you can be wrong, and the others are wrong, the ones who have extracted ruling from the Quran and the Sunnah, but they're ending up with a different opinion, then they are wrong, but with this understanding that they can be right. And of course, we are only talking about ikhtilaf here on the issues where there can be difference of opinion. There are issues that there cannot be any difference of opinion, that those are qat'i rulings from Islam. So you cannot have difference of opinion. That, for example, the riba being haram is a very clear haram in Islam. You cannot come up with differences of opinions here. So those are not acceptable kind of differences. That's what I mean by that. Okay. There are too many things that are popping up here. So let me go back where I was at. Then there's a question, what is a fatwa and how is it related to usul? Please explain and define what is a clear difference between consensus, ijma, and analogy and the qiyas. So as I said, I mean, we can be on a ride to too many questions and answers here. I think did all these things about ijma and the analogy and as I said, I'm just touching these subjects right now. We'll go in more detail. Just to give you a quick answer, ijma. Yes, these are two different questions. That's fine. When it comes to the ijma, even the fatwa, we will talk about all these things. But ijma is consensus. As I said, consensus itself has differences among the scholars in the past, but the one which is accepted by almost all is ijma sahaba, the consensus of the sahaba, that all the sahaba agreed on something, and they will only agree on because there was a known ruling that existed among them, hence they were following that. Okay, now the analogy is normally or the qiyas is based of a rule that has an illah, reasoning behind the rule, which is part from the text of the Quran and the Sunnah, from the nas. We don't make the analogy or we don't make the illah or the reasoning behind the hukum from the mind. Rather, it has to be from the text directly. Now, from that illah, that rule probably will be talking about one specific situation. For example, for Salatul Jum'ah, we are told not to do the businesses because the illah there was Salatul Jum'ah itself. Now, that's the one that prevents us to do the business. Now, it's not only the business that we are supposed to stop, rather for any other action that can prevent us to enter into Salatul Jum'ah, to pray Salatul Jum'ah, becomes haram also to be involved in at the time, at the stake of not praying Salatul Jum'ah. So that would be the analogy which is coming from the reasoning behind another hukum. It's a parallel hukum that goes along with the same reasoning. So that's that. Now the first question was, what is a fatwa and how is it related to usul? A fatwa is actually more of a when you use the usul of the fiqh to come to, and you do the ijtihad, and the last conclusion of the ijtihad is referred as a fatwa. This is the fatwa, or the end result of it, if you want to call it. Okay, then there are two. Okay, that's it. Okay, I don't see any more questions, so we'll stop here, inshallah. Is that good, Jawad?
Yeah, Jazakallah khair. Yeah, no more questions.
Okay,
We
جزاكم
can
الله
end.
خير. سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك نشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت ونستغفرك ونتوب عليك. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullah. Jazakallah khair. Assalamu alaikum.